about the cats that do find their ways into shelters? Is there something we can do to reduce their euthanasia aside from increasing our adoption? The feral cats are probably not going to be going out through an adoption avenue, and in many of our big shelters, lots of friendly cats and kittens are being euthanized just because we can't get enough adopters in the door at this time. So First Coast No More Homeless Pets has the Feral Freedom Program. How many of you have heard of the Feral Freedom Program? How many of you are doing something like feral freedom, at least on some scale? How many of you would like to do more? A few, interesting, a few more. We love this Feral Freedom Program. We think it's incredibly innovative, and it's a way to target animals at risk for death. So as I talked about, if we spread our TNR out community-wide, it's really hard to see an impact. And if the impact that we want to have, or if one of the impacts is reducing shelter death, then this is a program that does that. This program does not actually decrease the number of cats coming into the shelter. It doesn't decrease the amount of reproduction out in the community, because in the past, this is a program that neuters feral cats after they come to the shelter, and in the past, those cats would have been dead, so they weren't going to contribute to reproduction. But this program has had a dramatic impact on shelter death. So this is a program that started in 2008. It's a partnership between the TNR group at First Coast No More Homeless Pets, the county shelter, and with funding from Best Friends. It's also very expensive. Doing a lot of neutering is very expensive. And it started out with them asking for their tip-eared cats back, and then the county said, well, why don't you just take all the feral cats? And so they got more than they asked for, but they found a really novel way to address this. And this program puts resources towards the nuisance cats, the ones that the community objects to. This is a graph that shows the shelter data before the program started. So the 2 years before the program, this was a very crowded shelter with 200 to 300 cats in it at any one time. The most remarkable thing was their live release rate was less than 10%. They adopted out about 500 cats a year in this gigantic shelter. So being a cat and getting admitted to this shelter was a very hazardous activity. So how does it work? Citizens borrow traps from the shelter, and animal control will come and pick up the cats after they're trapped. And then First Coast picks the cats up the day they arrive at the shelter, brings them to the spay-neuter clinic, where they're neutered and ear-tipped and vaccinated, keep them overnight, and then the next day, the staff from the spay-neuter clinic releases them at the trapping site. So what has turned this around is they don't actually ask the residents if they want their cat back. This is just how cats are managed. So this is what's novel, is it's not negotiated with the community. This is city policy. And they put some door hangers up. So through last year, they had neutered 15,000 cats. About 1,000 went to rescue. Very few were euthanized for being in poor condition. About 1,000 were trapped more than once, so it's not a really high recidivism rate. And they do have a 3-strike rule. The third time a cat comes in, he cannot go back to the same location. And what they saw was dramatic decrease in adult cat euthanasia. Not much impact on kittens, because this program is not for kittens. But adult cat euthanasia, especially feral cats, are the biggest challenge that shelters have. So going back to that data I showed you, here's shelter crowding, a huge number of cats to deal with by this understaffed shelter, and this is what their daily census looked like after implementation of this program. And now you have a shelter population the staff can deal with, they stay healthier, and the cats that actually are in the shelter have a better chance of being adopted. This is what the live release rate would have been without the program, and this is the live release rate after the program. Overnight, live release rate for cats going from 10% to over 50% on average throughout the year through this one program. Live release rate goes down in the summer. That's because of kittens coming in during the summer.